Hi, welcome to the third video on Tablib. So in this video we're going to talk about file exports. So we've seen previously how to import data into Tablib. We've seen how to work with the basics of Tablib by adding columns and rows, accessing and deleting columns and so on. And now finally we'll get to exporting. One of the selling points of Tablib is that you can easily export to many different formats. So enough talking, let's just head into the code and see how this works in practice. So here we are in the third file, and here you can see that we've imported the single CSV file that we had in the previous video. So just to remind you, by just printing this out, just call this imported data, and this is just a name and age column with Eirik, Stine, and John, with some various random numbers here. And then you might wonder, how can you write to a CSV file or to a JSON or YAML or HTML or Excel or whatever? And basically the main functionality of this is just using the export method. So what I can do is to take my data here to export and then simply specify the format. So you can see we have a format argument, and this can just be specified as a string. And let's just say CSV. And then let me write this to a print statement, just so we can see it. And here you can see that then you get this looking thing here. And this is precisely how it would look as a CSV file. So far I'm just printing it to the terminal, but afterwards we'll see how to actually write this to a file. But this is the basic functionality, and it's the same for all of these types. And that's kind of the advantage. So if I want to do it as a JSON, I simply write JSON, right? So let's just print this out. Then you get this nice thing here. That's a JSON format of the same type of information. And you can now do it for all of these various types. Let me just quickly write it for each of them. Here we have a YAML file. So, YAML like this. And here you have HTML. So this is HTML tables, while the YAML is just a markup language type format that are used for config files. And then you have Excel as well. So let me just take this, and then you can write XLS for Excel. And now if I print all of these, you'll see here that, well, the Excel one is kind of dominating because this is a binary file. But let's see if I can go up here and look at the others. So here we had, let's see, here we had the JSON one. Here we have the YAML one right here. And here we have the HTML one. And here you can see the table tag and also the different tags like table body and table head that you find in HTML for making tables. So now let's get on to writing them out. And here let's remove this. This is what we were supposed to be doing. So first of all, let's just look at writing to a CSV file. This might look kind of obvious what you should do now. You can just export it and then just write it. So let's use the context manager and here open with writing. So here we have a new file. Let's place it into the artifacts folder and let's just call it new file.csv, something simple. Here the mode is writing, so a W. File, and then we do file.write, so nothing complicated, and we basically have what we want to write. That's this thing here. So let's just run this. Everything looks good. We can head into the artifacts folder. Here we have a new file. This doesn't look quite correct, right? It looks almost correct, except that we would actually want something more like this. The reason for this is that by default this adds some new line information. And that's super inconvenient for CSV files, and it's convenient for other file types, just to make it more readable. But specifically for CSV files, here in the open function in Python, we need actually to specify new line here and specify this just as an empty string. So if I just do this again, so now it basically looks as it should. But this is something that is easy to trip up on, not checking the file, simply writing, and then when you read it in a different system, then every second line is just blank, and that creates some problems in certain CSV readers. So you need to remember here, when you're writing to CSV or any other ones where you don't want new lines automatically, you need to specify that the new line should be basically nothing. And here for writing to Excel, this is also slightly different because, as you saw here, this is a binary format that you get out. So then essentially you need to just use write binary. Let me just copy this code from somewhere else that I have it, because it's mostly repetition. The only important thing here is that you write binary, not just write, and then you get a new Excel file. So if I run this, you can see now that we got this new file Excel, and if you open this in Microsoft Excel, this will look as it should. So you can use this format to basically write to different files. Finally, before we end, I just also wanted to mention that you can go from data set here in Tablib to a data frame in Pandas. So let me just head to the top and from Pandas import data frame. So of course, to do this, you need to have Pandas installed. And when you do this, you can create a Pandas data frame like this. And then you simply take your data. Let's do the imported data one. And then just pass in the dict information. So now you can print out data frame. You can, for instance, use .head. This is a pandas method for displaying the first rows. And here you can see that in a Pandas data frame. If you don't know about Pandas, then you don't need to worry about this, but you can convert between Pandas and Tablib. But still, even though you can do this, I want to throw out a warning, because then what you might think is that you can import things with Tablib, and then convert them to a Pandas data frame, do some complex transformations, and then go back. And you can do this, but then I think you should kind of seriously consider if you just shouldn't use Pandas all the way. Because then you're kind of starting to rely on this. And Pandas, as I've mentioned, is a much more complex library for doing, well, advanced transformations. Pandas can also import CSV files and import the basic file types. So then you should really consider if you just should do everything in Pandas. But strictly speaking, the option is here. So if you're doing much of your work in Tablib, but then just need one very convenient Pandas function for aggregating a row or making a group by statement and then go back to Tablib, that's completely fine. In any case, now you know how to export things with Tablib. So that means that you can import files, you can add rows and columns or do some simple modifications. And after doing that, you can export them to a new format. So that's kind of the base functionality of Tablib. In the next two videos, I'm going to talk about dynamic columns and formatters. These are two more, let's say, advanced or more hidden features in Tablib that I also think is super convenient. So thanks a lot for watching as always, and I'll see you again in the next video.